This is my last chance to remind you live that this Saturday, September 21st, our very own Eylon Levy will be debating Al Jazeera's Mehdi Hassan in New York City. If you're in New York, you can buy a ticket and attend in person. If you're not attending in person, you will be able to watch a live stream. The link is in the bios of our social media platforms. Wherever you are in the world, you can host a viewing event. If you want to host a viewing event, please, again, go to our social media pages, find a link in our bios, and you will find a form to fill out, and we will send you materials to help you have a successful viewing event. Again, all of the relevant information on how to attend in person, how to register for the live stream, and how to host a viewing event is on our social media platforms. You're not going to want to miss this Eylon Levy versus Mehdi Hassan. Now, on with the daily briefing. Hezbollah is mourning its dead and injured. Hezbollah announced at least 10 terrorists killed in 2 waves of strikes, one on Monday targeting pagers and a second on Tuesday targeting two-way radios. Hezbollah media reported that more than 3,000 were injured from Hezbollah units. There's a lot of nonsense commentary on social media. Some people are so committed to finding Israel guilty of crimes no matter what, that they are fabricating claims that not even Hezbollah is making. I've seen claims that Israel tampered with pagers that were sold to the Lebanese public and that Lebanon at large is under attack. This is false. Listen, Israel could invent a magic spell that just wished all the Hezbollah and Hamas gangsters out of existence, and the same crowd, so many of whom are professors, would whine that it's not fair that Israel has better technology. Well, this is what Hezbollah is saying. Hezbollah said they purchased thousands of special order encrypted pagers for its commanders. This followed a public Hezbollah campaign to stop using cellular phones, which Hezbollah believed were susceptible to Israel's eavesdropping. Hezbollah put out multiple messages acknowledging that its operatives were the targets. Hezbollah did not distribute its special pagers to uninvolved civilians. What is true is that Iran's terror army, Hezbollah, is so deeply embedded in Lebanon that seemingly civilian locations were explosively exposed as housing Hezbollah equipment and terrorists. As the saying goes, Hezbollah is an army with a state. Now, here's an important part of the story that isn't getting enough attention. Hezbollah pagers also detonated in Syria and in Iraq. Why is that? There's even first-hand video of Houthis, Iran's terror pirates in Yemen, saying that they were injured and killed. I will be watching that closely. The detonations clearly depict Iran's ring of fire across the Middle East around Israel and the 7 fronts that Iran's war against Israel is taking place. Now, many in the Arab world, long suffering from Iran's violence, are celebrating Hezbollah's loss, some celebrating quietly and some more publicly. Arab social media was abuzz with anti-Hezbollah memes and calls to remember Hezbollah's role in massacring innocents in Syria and Lebanon. There are Arabic language music clips mocking Hezbollah, much like last month's chicken memes. One more item today. The UN General Assembly is doing what it does best, ganging up on Israel. The General Assembly passed a resolution that demands that Israel end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory and evacuate all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory. The resolution called for sanctions against Israelis who ignore this unjust demand. I have questions. What exactly is Palestinian territory? Since when? And how do you know? The UN says that East Jerusalem is part of occupied Palestinian territory. It means the Western Wall and the Temple Mount are part of occupied Palestinian territory. It means the Jewish quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem is an illegal settlement. It means that the UN seeks sanctions against Israel until Israel gives up the entire Old City of Jerusalem and 100% of the West Bank. It gives the Palestinians everything, including the holiest sites of the Jewish people, in exchange for nothing. 124 countries, including France, voted in favor. 14, including the United States, opposed, and 43 abstained. UN General Assembly resolutions are non-binding, but they are a clear indication that most countries in the world think that bullying Israel is good politics. How do you think Israel should respond? Let me know in the comments. Let's take some questions from people watching live on our social media platforms, whether Instagram, YouTube, X, Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. Please, let's hear a few questions.
Our first question today comes from Jerry Hagan on YouTube, who asks, why hasn't the IDF taken advantage of the situation to move into Lebanon?
Yes, we're all watching very closely because ultimately, from Israel's perspective, it's the goal that matters and not the tactics. Meaning, what is the goal? The goal, which the Israeli Security Cabinet articulated very clearly in the beginning of the week, is that the more than 60,000 Israelis who were forced to flee their homes in northern Israel because Hezbollah is shooting rockets, anti-tank missiles, and suicide drones at them for 11 months, the goal is that those people will be able to return to their homes safely. So if we look today in the situation in northern Israel, are those people home safely? No, they are not, and therefore the Israeli military operations will continue. I am not privy to the calculations about specific IDF tactics. We're all watching very closely. Perhaps there is still room for a diplomatic solution. Perhaps Hezbollah received the message very clearly that Israel is serious about ensuring that its citizens can return to their homes and that Hezbollah will not be in a position to fire on them once they return to their homes. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Next question comes from Sammy Tissa on YouTube, who asks, can you speak about the arrest of the businessman who was sent by Iran to assassinate various senior Israeli officials?
Yes, I just saw this story before I went live, the headline that an Israeli Jew has been arrested for effectively being an Iranian agent who was seeking the assassination of senior Israeli officials. Now, the details of this story are still coming out. I can only say that it's good news that this plot was stopped. And the bigger picture must be known. Iran wants to set the whole Middle East on fire. It is attacking Israel through its proxies and through its own military on 7 fronts. Those 7 fronts: Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, the Iranian militias in Iraq, and Iran itself. And you can count 8, which is Jewish communities and Israelis around the world. And the attacks on them are being sponsored, trained, manipulated by Iran. So Iran is trying to attack Israel on all fronts. Why? It's very simple. Iran's goal is to destroy Israel. Iran wants to destroy Israel, and it is this desire to destroy Israel that makes Iran popular in many quarters of the world that see the destruction of Israel as a good idea. So it's no surprise to me that Iran is trying its best to recruit agents that will help it carry out its mission, and it's a very good thing that in this particular case, that the mission was stopped.
The next question comes from Rachel on Instagram, who asks, are we closing in on Sinai, or is Hezbollah's interference affecting our rescue efforts?
That's the million-dollar question. Are we closing in on Sinwar, and what will be the fate of the Hamas leaders who planned the October 7th massacre? We know the fate of some of them already. There have been targeted strikes on people like Mohammed Deif and other senior Hamas leaders who planned and participated and orchestrated and carried out the October 7th massacre. The remaining question about Sinwar is, of course, an open one. It has been speculated that Sinwar can be found surrounded by many living hostages, and therefore a strike to take out Sinwar would also target many hostages. Now, there are headlines and proposals all the time about a diplomatic way out if the military solution cannot be found. What Israel is, of course, seeking is the safe return of all of the hostages and to ensure that Gaza will never again pose a threat to Israel. There are constantly headlines and diplomatic negotiations taking place about how to achieve this. All I can say is I'm waiting and watching just like you are.
Next question comes from Winnow on Instagram, who asks, a question on these states that are halting weapon sales. To what extent is this threatening Israel's war goals and defense capabilities, and is this more of a medium-term problem?
Yes, I have been following this story. There were headlines about how Germany is quietly participating in an arms embargo against Israel by holding up the shipment of certain parts and supplies to Israel. There was a similar situation in the UK. It is a disturbing trend, but I am not in a position to tell you how it affects the Israeli military and how it affects operations. I am sure that Israel's defense planners have taken into consideration what they need to import, how much, and where they get it from. The big picture is that we need to call this out when we see it. If these countries, specifically Germany and the UK, which were quite sympathetic to Israel in the aftermath of the October 7th massacre, if there are certain domestic constituencies within those countries that are pressuring the government so hard to, in a way, force Israel to lose the war, we need to call that out for what it is and speak with a clear voice that we're not going to allow Hamas to win one way or another. The whole world needs to understand that that's Israel's message, and how they react to that will affect perhaps their own politics, but Israel is certainly determined and to achieve the successful aims of the war.
Our next question comes from Katie on Instagram, who asks, in the UK, all the broadcasters are twisting this whole story against Israel. How on earth do we correct this? I try, but it's soul-destroying and never goes anywhere.
Well, the one thing you can do is hold the line yourself. Don't let yourself be bullied by people who are telling you that Israel deserves to lose this war, or Hamas has a point, or anything like this. I can't give you advice on how to change the political reality in other countries that will shape the way that they view Israel. What I can do is empower you to stand up for yourself, to be proud of who you are, and to understand that Israel's not going anywhere, that Israel is going to keep fighting until its own people are safe in their homes, whether it's in northern Israel or southern Israel. And the rest of the world is going to have to deal with this fact and make adjustments themselves.
And our last question today comes from Alicia, who asks, will the debate between Eylon and Mehdi be online after it goes live?
Yes, thank you for the question about the debate. This is the important event of the century, we're calling it. The debate of the century is Saturday night, 8 p.m. New York time. It's going to be 3 a.m. in Israel. So certainly if you're in Israel and you're not able to watch at 3 a.m., yes, the entire debate will be published by the organizers, Open to Debate. They have a YouTube channel. It will go on there. And if you pay attention to our social media platforms, we will be sharing it there as well. So don't be afraid or upset if you cannot watch the live at exactly 8 p.m. Eastern or 3 a.m. Israel time. You'll be able to watch the whole thing. You'll be able to watch Eylon Levy defeat Mehdi Hassan in the debate and show that, yes, Israel's actions in Gaza were justified. That's all the time we have for in this live debate, in this live daily briefing. The debate's on Saturday. That's all we have time for in this live daily briefing. If you have questions that I didn't get to, feel free to message me on my own platforms. I'm Daniel Rubenstein. This was the live daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokespersons Office. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here for the live on Sunday.